Oh, 1 second.
Right.
I need a tissue. Yeah. Okay. I have to clean the camera over here. There's a lot of fingerprints. Okay. Vino Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Maaseh Yadeinu Konenu Aleinu Maaseh Yadeinu Konenu. So we're going to be continue our Shiur Shaare Orah. We are on page Kuf Ayin Tet. We haven't made any movement recently, just little small things, but we're embellishing a lot on what the text is saying. Okay, so it says over here, this is appropriate because we're going to read this not this parasha, but 2 weeks from now in Parashat Shelach. It says over there, Yigdal na koach Adonai, right? When Moshe Rabbeinu, after they made Heta Miraglim, after they made the sin of the Miraglim, the spies, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ve'ata, and now, Yigdal na, right? Please let increase koach, the koach of Aleph Dal Nun Yud. And obviously, theologically, that's a big question. Why is that a big question theologically? Yes. I know. We got to go right into the meat and potatoes over here in this class. There's no warm-up over here. How can Moshe Rabbeinu ask God to increase his strength?
Revealed strength.
Now Stephen got to it right away. He's already there. The revealed strength, right? That's the key.
I'm hungry, so we have an hour to go. Then I'm going to go.
Exactly, the revealed strength in the world, right? So let's see what says on the bottom over here about that. When the Jewish people sinned, when they when they listened and spoke the bad report about the land of Israel, and Hashem wanted to wipe them out completely. Yes. Hitpalel Moshe Rabbeinu ve'amar. Moshe Rabbeinu prayed and he said, "Ve'ata yigdal na koach Adonai." Yes, and of course the name we're focusing on is Aleph Daled Nun Yud here. Yes, the Katav Ramban, Nachmanides wrote, Sham, v'derech ha'emet, because the Ramban, remember, he brings many different understandings of he'll quote Rashi, he'll say where he agrees with Rashi, he'll say where he doesn't agree with Rashi, okay? And then what he'll do is also bring derech ha'emet. When he says derech ha'emet, what does he mean? He means the sod, he means the secret, the way of the truth, right? Which is the secret. And what does he say? Shizkir Hashem b'makom zeh, Hashem b'makom zeh hu ba'adonai. That this is a specific reason why Moshe Rabbeinu used the name Aleph Daled Nun Yud here and not another name of Hashem. Vayomer sheyeh hagidola bekoach harachamim. The Ramban says so that there should be gidula in the strength of rachamim, because obviously after the Jewish people made the sin, God had a will to limit his rachamim, right? Ki midat hadin mituha negdam, because the midat hadin was enlivened. Why? Because of the sin of the miragelim. Ve'akavana, that's the Ramban. That's what the Ramban says. Ve'akavana sheyushpa hashefa shel chesed v'rahamim mimidat harahamim ha'elyona b'Adonai. So what's the Ramban really saying? Of course, the Ramban, when he talks about derech emet, he gives it only in hints. He's not really elaborating at all. And he'll always say, ve'amevin yavin, and the person who understands will understand, right? Because binah is what is necessary in order to understand the sod. Because we don't teach Maaseh Merkava to someone who does not mevin davar mitoch davar. He has to have proper binah, the ability to take a one and then and bring it to other places, which means there are yesodot and the ability to understand deeper from what's been discussed. So now the rabbis will explain what is the Ramban talking about. He says, Ramban is saying, Moshe Rabbeinu, what was he praying? He was asking for the shefa of chesed and rachamim to come to the midat hadin. What was the midat hadin? Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Or, like you said, Stephen, right, Steve? To basically to allow the revelation of loving kindness and mercy rather than have the revelation of judgment. Okay. And that's midat malchut. The aleph daled nun yud we've already learned in this book is the midah of the malchut, the shekhinah, which means the distribution of the shefa from shamayim comes from the malchut, comes from the sifra of the malchut. Le'amtiket adin, to basically to sweeten the judgment, which means it's not that there's not going to be any judgment. There's going to be some judgment, but we're going to want. Moshe Rabbeinu is asking to sweeten the judgment with chesed and with rachamim. Now he's going to quote the Nefesh HaChaim, which is Rav Chaim Volozhin, the student of the Gaon Mivilna. And what does it say in Nefesh HaChaim in Shaare Aleph, Perak Kaf? She'aniyat amen yehesh merabah. We have a concept. When someone says Kaddish, you have to answer Kaddish. Amen yehesh merabah. Bechol koho, it says. It says a person should answer, I think I discussed this once before, but that's okay, it's worth repeating. A person should answer Amen Yehesh Merabah Bekol Kocho, it says, with all of his strength, right? That's why it's important for the Shaliach Tzibur to also say the Kaddish Bekol Kocho. This way it doesn't look bad when the Kaddish is being said in a low tone and then someone answers in a stronger, right? So Kaddish should be said with koach, with strength, yes? Shekorim lo gizar dino. When a person answers Amen Yehesh Merabah, what it does is it rips, it tears up, it destroys the judgment, the gizar din that is in the shamayim.
The one
who answers bekol kocho, with all of his strength.
I don't know where it comes from, but I've read that people don't answer Kaddish. They stand the risk of men passing away, so their children don't have fathers.
Well, we understand why. If there's a gizar din and a person doesn't have that gizar din torn up, what happens? Then the din happens, right? So if a person wants to limit the amount of dinim, the amount of judgments that are coming, listen, we all make mistakes. We all have problems that we need to improve on, yes? So there's always the potential for judgment that comes to the... Let's understand this. Why is it that the rabbis instituted that a person says Kaddish for a year for parents? So I want to answer is what? The answer is very simple. That what? That he wants to elevate the soul of his parent. Yes, but there's another idea. When there's a death in the family, din comes to that family. First of all, din already came to that family. Somebody died. Yes. So when a person is saying the Kaddish and having other people answer b'kol kocho, it helps to reduce the judgment on them and their family during that entire period of the mourning. Okay, continuing on. The hu b'kinyan, and now the Rabbi Chaim Volozhin says, and this is similar to what Moshe Rabbeinu prayed, what we just discussed. Ve'ata yigdal na koach, aleph daled nun yud. Shemashech mishorish mikor shefa kedusha ve'abrachot, that we should have the ability to draw from the makor. What is the makor? The source of shefa, of abundance, of holy abundance, and bracha. Yes? Where is the source of shefa, kedusha, and bracha? If you had to pick which of the sfirot is the source of shefa, bracha, and kedusha, it's the binah. Yes? Okay? Shehu b'shem Ya me'atzilut le'olam haberiyah, which is in the name of Yud Kei. What is Yud Kei? Yud Kei, the Yod represents the Sfirah of Chokhmah, and the Hey represents, the first Hey of Hashem's name represents the Sfirah of Binah. And of course, the Kotz, the thorn on top of the Yod, represents the Keter. Those three together from Atzilut le'olam haberiyah, which means the Shefa that comes from those three, from the world of Atzilut, comes to the Malchut and then gets distributed to the Olam HaBriyah, which is the first of the worlds of the Pirud, of the separation.
Can you say that Hashem sent the Chokmah being down into Da'at, and then from Da'at,
so he's not...
Another Sephirat exploded and grew out from there.
So again, he's not bringing up Da'at, okay? And again, he's not bringing it up.
Another concept.
It's when the Keter is not there, right? When the Keter is not, then you have the Da'at, right? Because if you think about it, Keter is in the middle, Da'at is in the middle, yes? Okay? So there's no 11 sfirot, of course, chas v'shalom, God forbid, right? So there's only 10 sfirot, yes? So when you're talking about the keter, you do not talk about the dot. When you talk about the dot, you don't talk about the keter. That's why you very carefully said chokhmah, bina, and dot, right?
I just want to tell something.
Let me see the chart.
Which, of course, you'll never find in an Ashkenaz book.
No, it's not in the art scroll.
Okay, so I always, in the morning, I'll look at it. I'll look at it. I go, here's Kaka. So I have Chokmah Bina going down into a dot, and then
Right.
from over there, there's an explosion, and that's where you have Chesed word, and then the whole purpose of it all, Malkut, and then you move on from there. So just something in my head, I do that. But I look at it like Chokmah Bina down
Okay,
here,
so what
do
this,
the creation and start.
That's correct. But what this really is tikkun hanefesh, right? That's what it says here. It's tikkun hanefesh, right? Okay, so what is tikkun hanefesh? It's basically we talked about what does it mean vayivra et adam betzamo betzela me'elohim bara oto. That's exactly what this is talking about, right? That when Hashem created man, what did he do? He created man in his image. Now, he has no image. What does it mean he has no image? We talked about this last week, that he wants us to be able to do a mashal from our body to understand how things work in the spiritual world. So what this is talking about is basically the corresponding. So what's the keter? That's the Gulgolta. What's the Gulgolta? If you look in the book here, Gulgolta. No, not Gilgul. Gilgolta is the skull. So the skull represent the skull in the mashal. The mashal is the keter, right? Okay. Then what is the chokhmah? It's moach yamin, the right brain. What the Balatanya talks about this a lot. Okay. Then you have the bina, is the moach small, left brain. What's the dot? So there's two parts to the dot: dot elyon and dot tachton. What's upper and lower? What's dot elyon? Dot. But how do we understand this in the body? So you have the brain stem, you have the medulla, the pons, and the midbrain, right? That's within the skull. Okay, that's called dot elyon. Then you have dot tachton. What's dot tachton? The cervical spine, the thoracic spine, and the lumbar spine. That's dot tachton. That's coming into the rest of the body, yes, below the skull. Then you have, he talks over here about ozen small, ozen yamin, ayin. This has to do with complicated, things about Adam Kadmon. We'll leave that alone for now, okay? Then peh. What is peh? Peh is the bottom, right? Is the mouth, right? Because you have a peh here and you have a peh someplace else. We know what we're talking about? Exactly, okay? And that's why the sin of Lashon Hara is spiritually similar to the law of Shichvat Zera Levatala, which means wasting seed. And that's why the gravity is so severe, because you're using the peh there and the peh here. Yes, that's the parallel between the two of them. Anyway, Zroa Yamin is the chesed, the right arm is the chesed, Zroa small is the gevurah. Then the goof, which is the body here, is called the tiferet. Yes. Then you have yerech yamin, which is the right thigh. Yerech small, which is the left side. The yesod, which is the member, and the ateret, which is the end. Yes. So it shows that the human body is basically a parallel, or it was made in the image or parallel of the spiritual world.
You said that the left brain, the left part is smaller than the right part.
No, I didn't say that. Did I say I didn't say that? No. There's right brain and left brain. It's not smaller. They're the same size as far as I know. Okay? All right. Anyway, let's continue on. Okay. The Olam HaYetzirah, Olam HaMasiyah. So from the Olam HaBriyah, where a person is Moshech the Shefra from Chesed and Rachamim through the Malchut, from the Makor, which is the Gar, which is the Binah and above, yes? Moshech this from the Chesed and the Rachamim to the Malchut. The Malchut then distributes it to the Briyah. and then the Bria will distribute it to the Yetzirah, and Yetzirah will distribute it to the Asiyah, all through the Malchut of each one of those olamot, each one of those worlds. Okay, the Ayidei Or Zeh, by way of this Or, which is the Or of the Chesed and Rachamim, Yim Halu Lo et Kol Avonotav. So what does this mean? When we're answering the Kaddish, what are we doing? Bekol Kocho, Yigdal Na Koach Aleph Dalad Nun Yud, right? What are we doing? Exactly what Moshe did in his tefillah to reduce the din on Klal Yisrael after the Chet of the Meraglim. What we're doing when a person is saying Kaddish with all of his strength, with all of his kocho, what is he doing? He's basically reducing the din that he has on himself and his family. That's exactly what the rabbi is saying here. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu prayed that we should be able to draw from the Rachamim, the mercy Elyonim, Chaim, and we should increase what you said, which is to reveal that chesed and rachamim through the malchut, and that what will happen. So what was Moshe's prayer? They're all going to die.
He said, take me out of your book.
No, that was after Chet Egel, after the Meraglim. And if you notice, Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer is a little different by the Meraglim than it is by Chet Egel. By Het Egel, what does he says? He gets Amonai, Kel Rakum, 13 attributes. Yet, by the Meraglim, there's only 7.
Oh.
Why? It says, Tashash Kocho Kanekeva, which means the power, the strength, was weakened like that of a woman, because the sin was so much more grave than the sin of the Egel, okay?
Amazing.
Right? I mean, there's a lot to talk about on that one, okay? It's so much more grave than the sin of the Egel, the sin of the Meraglim, okay? That what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu's power of his koach of his tefillah was weakened like that of a woman. That's why he only said that he was only able to say 7 rather than 13. And so what happened? By the Chet Egel, when Moshe Rabbeinu prayed, what happened? The death was the decree to wipe out all the Jewish people was canceled, right? But by the Meraglim, it was not canceled. It was only delayed. Delayed for what?
For a new generation.
Exactly. Delayed for a new generation. That is exactly correct. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have the koach, the strength, to be able to. Now, what is the connection between Kaddish and koach? Why Davka, a person answers Kaddish b'kol kocho? If you look at the Kaddish, the first paragraph of the Kaddish, count up how many words there are.
28.
28. The second paragraph of the Kaddish, count up how many words there are. 28. So we see koach. The Kaddish is all about the koach. And that's why when you answer it kol kocho, it rips up the gizar din. If the more koach a person uses, right, if he's able to muster up enough koach, he can tear up the gizar din completely. If he doesn't muster enough koach, if he says it weakly, then he may tear up the gizar din, but only partially, like we see by it happened to Chet Meraglim. Yes?
A month ago, you told us the same thing, that's why I remember. And then you said that the Ashkenaz changed it. So I went to count it, and it's not 28.
I know. Which would us or ours or theirs?
Theirs.
I know.
But I cannot do hours over there.
We follow, again, when you say Kaddish, you say your way. You say your way. Okay? That's not exactly correct. You have to be careful doing that. Say Teshuvah, they try to make it up because they add in Le'ela Ul'ela, right? So what they do is, because they want to be sensitive not to have extra words, what they do is, instead of what they do all year long, is Le'ela min kol, that's their Kaddish, right? They say Le'ela Ul'ela mikol. So they take the word min kol, which is 2 words, and they make it into 1 word, mikol, in order to take away a word. This way they can do Le'ela Ul'ela. That's their nosach. The Sfaradim, we don't change our kaddish at all for the holidays. Va'aset Yimei Teshuvah. Okay, except in the end with the Oseh Hashalom. Okay.
You know, when you're in Chabad, you just gotta do it, no matter what anyone's looking at you, whatever.
Yeah, Chabad lets you get away with it. Do your own thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And the whole purpose was ayen lekaman od be'inyan zeh. So we're going to talk about this more, about this concept of koach in other sections here. What's that?
They do it like the
No,
Arizal.
no.
Okay, it's nusa, but they
Nusa.
still have
Not Kaddish, they do Ashkenaz.
they still have aspects of they have ula. Okay, let's continue on. Sod hayim hanim shachim elea me'el chai. So we talked about now again. We're talking about here the sfira of El Chai, which is the sfira of Yesod, right? So the chayim is drawn through the Yesod and brought to the Malchut. Yes, shorosh hachayim hu midat habina. The root of life is in the midah of the bina. Yes, what was Chava called? Kol Chai, the mother of all life, right? Chava is the source of all living human beings on the planet, right? Chava is that represents the female, the bina, which is the female in the potential. Yep. Hamit pashet leze'er anpin, who basically and is drawn or spreads out to the ze'er anpin. Ze'er anpin is the kucha brichu, right? That's the vav. Okay. Lebinyan ha'olamot ha'tachtonim, to the structure of the lower worlds. We're talking from the Atzilut down to the lower worlds. Omnam im haya chesed me'olam harachamim mitgale b'shlemuto. If the chesed from the world of the rachamim would be revealed in its perfection, in its completeness, haya mistalek hara ve'bechira ve'adin kemo sheyeh la'atid lavo. The ra and the bechira would all disappear, and the din. Why is that? No, that is exactly what happens in the resurrection. In the resurrection, that's precisely what happens, okay? And that's why, what is Moshe Rabbeinu? Eheyeh asher eheyeh, right? What eheyeh? Eheyeh is the name of Hashem that corresponds to the Keter, which is Rachamim, unlimited mercy, right? Correct. Unlimited mercy. Why unlimited mercy? Because they didn't deserve. So the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt based on unlimited mercy. Asher ehiyeh, which means there's going to be a time in the future where it's going to happen again. What is that talking about? That's talking about Mashiach and the resurrection. Okay, and that's what it says here. So when the Rachamim Gimurim, the Shlemut is revealed, then there is no more Ra, and there's no more Bechira, and there's no more choice. And there's no more din, it says here. Okay, let's continue on. Lachen hachesed elyon mitztamsem betoch hazer anpin. There, if we see the chesed elyon, the chesed above, is mitztamsem. It's contracted. It's limited. Okay, in the ze'er anpin, in the vav. Yeah. And it's influenced by the yesod little by little, which means it doesn't come out in shlemut. It comes out in a limited way. Okay. Utfilat Moshe Rabbeinu hayita sheigdal koach aleph daled nun yud. And the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu was that what? That the pipe, the what do you call that? The limitation should be opened. That's what you said, right? Same idea, right? That the malchut is basically how all the shefa comes through. Right, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted the Malchut to open more, so that more Shefa will be able to come through of Chesed. Okay, the Chesed Elyon yitpashet yoter mikaveh hanaga regila, and he wanted the Chesed Elyon to be mitpashet, to come out more, because he realized that otherwise they were not going to be forgiven. Okay. Kumosh bier hagra, like the Gaon Vilna explained, the Sefer that's new, and that's another reason. Wow. So Moshe Rabbeinu realized that what God was going to delay the death of the Jewish people so that they can have perot. Yes.
Pick them off every year, once a year on the night.
What happens in the 40th year?
They're in the graves.
No, they were alive because they knew
they didn't. The 40th year, the 15th, the last 15,000 didn't die. Okay, but let's understand. Once
Yeah.
once they pass that 40th year mark, now it's the new generation, correct? What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? Va'et hanan el Adonai ba'et hahi lemor. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He prays. Ata hilot leharot et avdecha. You've only begun to show your servant et godlecha vet yadecha chazaka, and your strong hand. Asher kema'aseh al gvurotecha. Berana. I want to cross. I want to go into the land of Israel. Why does he wait? He waits until when? He waits until after the new generation is born. And when the gzerah of the death in the midbar was done. Because that last year we discussed what? Nobody died that year. Those 15,000 that was supposed to die, Hashem gave them chesed and didn't die. Moshe Rabbeinu, and what else happened? Right before, what happens right before that? Moshe Rabbeinu basically has 3 ir miklat that he designates on the other side of the Jordan River. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Okay. What's Ir Miklat? It's a city of Levi'im, right? The Levi'im are not allowed to have any land. So where do they live? Each of the tribes, what they do is they gave a section of the tribe over for the Levi'im to live in a city. And the Levi'im lived in the city. They were the city dwellers. Everybody else lived on farms and things like that. But the Levi'im lived in the city. They weren't allowed to own land, so they have apartments or whatever. I don't know how you think about that in the city, all living close together without without gardens and things like that, because they're not allowed to own land, but they have to have a place to live, right? So Arei Miklat, which are refuge cities. So when a person commits murder, but shogeg, right? He didn't want to kill the person, right? He was walking under a ladder and the ladder fell and the person died. He goes to Ir Miklat, right? He goes to Ir Miklat. This whole concept of Rosech Bishkaga, right? So the relatives can't kill him. That is correct. So these Ir Miklat. So Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of Sefer Bemidbar, what does he do? He starts, first of all, he starts conquering. You know, think about it. The war with Amalek was when? Early on, right? Before Matan Torah. Yes? At the end, in the 40th year, the transition parasha is Parashat Chukat. The first part of Parashat Chukat discusses the first 2 years. And then the end of Chukat and the rest of the Sefer of Bimidbar and all of Dvarim is discussing the last 7 or 8 months of their time. Means the 38 years we don't have any information about in the Torah. Because what was going on during those 38 years? Jewish people were dying. And presumably, there was, since Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no Torah, there's no Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. It is possible that during that time, Hashem wasn't really talking to Moshe Rabbeinu or giving him things. He had already given him the Torah, right? Okay, now, 38 years. There's no Pesukim. There's nothing there. Now what happens? What right away? So when you pick up on the 38 years, right away what happens? Miriam dies, right? Then Aharon dies. Yes? And then what happens when Aaron dies? There's a war. Canaan, Amalek comes back, right, to fight against Israel, but they're dressed up as Canaanite, and they beat them. They beat them. Yes, not completely, but they beat them. What do we have? What's that? The Jewish people send them back. Don't finish them. No, don't finish them. Right? But so now we have the parallel. We have the parallel when they came out of Egypt. What was the first thing they had to do? They had to fight Amalek. They're fighting Amalek again. What is Moshe Rabbeinu? The next thing that happens? He has to pass through Edom. Hashem says, no, you can't go through Edom. Right? You have to go around them. Right? Because there's no fighting with Edom until the end. The fight with Edom, like we read in Sefer Ovadia, is at the end. Okay? So then he wants to go through Sichon. And what happens? Sichon comes to attack. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu and Am Yisrael do? They vanquish Sichon. They kill him. And then Og sees what happens to Sichon. And what does he do? He comes to fight against them. And then again, we see over and over again, it's brought up, the fight of Sichon and Og, over because Moshe Rabbeinu was starting to conquer. What part of he was conquering land that was outside Israel proper?
Wasn't that land actually originally owned by
Moab?
Okay. So he wouldn't have been able to.
He wouldn't have been able to conquer it. So he sees Hashem gives him the opportunity to begin conquering begin conquering what? Conquering the land of Sihon and Og. What is that land really? That's part of Greater Israel. That's part of the promise to Avraham Avinu. Yes. So Moshe Rabbeinu is starting to conquer land, and then Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to make 3 arei miklat, 3 refuge cities. What does Moshe Rabbeinu think?
Does he think he might end up there?
He says to himself, maybe this is a good time to see if we can bring the Rachamim Gidolim from the Shamayim and reverse the entire, and make the Mashiach happen now. That's Vayet Hanan.
Because you also think, I'm just wondering, maybe he thinks, hey, maybe I can end up in one of those Levite cities of refuge.
No, he wants to go into the land.
That's in the land.
But he's already starting to conquer.
Okay.
He's already starting to, to have the cities, right? He's also distributing the land because 2.5 tribes come to him, and what do? They say we want to be here, and he goes to Shamayim, and Shamayim, they tell him no problem. Yes, they can. So what is he? Moshe Rabbeinu is beginning to conquer the land, distribute it, and fight it. All right. So what is he saying to himself? Aha! Now's the time. Vayet Hanan el Adonai ba'et hahi. What et hahi? When is that? After he beat Og. Ramban says, if I'm not mistaken, after he beat Og, that was ba'et hahi, because he started to see that he was doing some of the things that are going to be the responsibility of the Mashiach.
Let me into the land.
Because why? Because what he wants to do is he's trying to bring Rachamim Gimurim from the Shamayim. Where do you see that? Now that we're studying this book, where do you see that in the Pasuk? What name does Moshe Rabbeinu use to pray there? Aleph Daled Nun Yud and Yud Ke Vav Ke, but not read as Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yud Ke Vav Ke read as Elohim. Adonai Elohim Ata Hilot Alerot Et Avdecha. No, it's not judgment. That's the key. What do we see? Aleph Daled Nun Yud is the Malchut, right? And Yud Ke Vav Ke, but not read as Aleph Daled Nun Yud, but read as Elohim. What is that? That represents the Binah. So what is he asking? He's asking for Shefa to come from the Binah through our activity, right? It's called Itaruta Detata, which means rising up from below. There's Le'ela, down, there's up, down, and there's down, up. Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to go down, up. He's trying to raise up the Rachamim through his tefillah from the Malchut to the Binah, correct, to bring it down. What's his goal? His goal is to have the keter, that eheyeh, the Rachamim Gimurim now. And what does Hashem say? Al tadaber elai od badavar hazeh. No, you miscalculated, Moshe Rabbeinu. They're not ready. So really Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to do there is to bring the Mashiach and bring the ultimate redemption. And he waited until the end of the 38 years. Why? Because once the din of the people who sinned by the Meraglim was finished, now is the time. This is the new generation. Maybe the new generation is going to be worthy to be that final generation before the resurrection. Unfortunately not. Okay, let's continue on here. Kmoshi biar hagra b'safar desniuta daf kaf amud gimel says over here, v'ilu haya mitgaleh chesed debina. If the chesed of the bina would have been revealed, levad haya chesed yoter midai. The chesed would have been very great. Shehu olam harachamim, because this is the world of the rachamim, which is the gar, or the gimel rishonim, the keter, the chokhmah, the bina. The hu bechinat olam haba, and that's the bechinah of olam haba, the shleimut, the perfection, the completion. That's the olam haba. Yom hashevi'i bina, the 7th day, which is bina. What is Shabbat? Shabbat is called me'en olam haba. What is me'en? A taste. A taste of olam haba. That is Shabbat. Right? So Shabbat is ke'en olam haba. V'haya ha'olam harev. Oh, wow. Now we understand when the Gemara says 6,000 years the world will exist, and in the 7th it will be haruv. What does it mean? The world will be harev. Esod v'had haruv. This is what he says over here. This is the Gra. He's explaining he's explaining him in Masechet Sanhedrin when it says the world will exist for 6,000 years, and in the 7,000 years, 7,000th year, 7th millennium, it'll be haruv, which many people understand destroyed. Not exactly. Let's see what it says over here. One second. No, haruv, not cherut. Close. Okay. The ganzu ba'avira shehu chesed dezayin tachtonot, which means, what does haruv mean? It's the world, which means the world of the milacha, the world of the zer anpin, the world of sachar va'onesh is going to be haruv. What's going to be? The world of shlemut, the world of perfection, where it's not sachar ve'onesh, it's the reward for all the work that is done. This world is the world of mishpat. What is mishpat? You have the ability to do good, you have the ability to do bad. Sachar, onesh. This is the world where a person collects the mitzvot. But it's not the world where one receives the reward for the mitzvot. That's why when we're doing the tikkun, it says, there's a pasuk that says, 1 second. I can't remember the pasuk. I added to it. People didn't. I don't think people understood why I did that. Hayom lekabel. What's it? Hayom, to receive, to work. Umachar lekabel scharam. So the idea is, the pasuk says that you're going to do the works for today. What is for today? For today is to do the work, the avodah, and tomorrow is to receive their reward. That what is tomorrow? Not tomorrow, Defka. Tomorrow is the Olam HaShlemut, which is the Olam Haba, which is the world of the Techiyah. That's when we receive the reward for all the work that was done for 6,000 years of the Jewish people. Okay? This is what it says in the Idra Zotah, Resh Peitet, Hesed Ila'a v'Tata'a. There's Hesed of Ila'a and there's Hesed of Tata'a. What is Hesed Ila'a? That's the Keter. What is the Hesed Tata'a? That is this Chesed. The Chesed that's in the Ze'er Anpin, which is the 6, right? That's not unlimited Chesed. That is limited Chesed. It's limited by the Gevurah. Okay? But the chesed of the keter is unlimited. The afzeh chesed ganzu b'yesod, and even this chesed is hidden in the yesod. Ad la'atid lavo, until the atid lavo, she'az yitgaleh b'fum amma. And that what's going to happen then? It's going to be revealed for everybody to see.
The chesed of the keter will be totally revealed in the 7th millennium.
That's eheyeh asher eheyeh.
Sounds like good times.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Okay, next. Lefichach himtim lahen bechayim. And therefore, okay, it says over here, so he's discussing the punishment of the generation of the Meraglim. What did he do? He was patient. Hashem is erech hapayim, even though they deserve to all die on the spot. Erech hapayim means what? That he delayed that punishment to give them opportunity to have life. For what purpose? To bring forth fruit, so the next generation can go into the land of Israel, because they're not going. Okay, let's see what he says in the bottom. Mashim tin lahem b'chayim hu rachamim yud gimel midot harachamim ha'elyonim. That the fact that Hashem was patient and didn't destroy them right away, right? That's from the Yud Gimel Midot. Which midah? Erech hapayim. Right? Okay. Me'amidah hanikret asher nishbata la'avotenu. In the remember, the Yud Gimel Midot has two presentations. One is the presentation in the Torah, right? Which is Hamonai Kel Rachum V'Chanun. Where's the other presentation? In the Tanakh. Miel kamocha noseh avon ve'over pesha. What we read in the Tashlich. We read in the Tashlich the presentation of Yud Gimel Midot that is in the Navi, not the one that's in the Torah. Even though each one of those corresponds, there's a balance. Yes? And if you look at a book that was written by Rab Moshe Cordovero called Tomer Devorah, it's good for Tomer to hear that. For Tomer Devorah, in Tomer Devorah, what does he discuss? Wow. What does he discuss? he discusses the Yud Gimel Midot based on what's written in the Navi, Mi El Kamocha, and he shows how each one of them is connected to the Yud Gimel Midot that Moshe Rabbeinu received on Har Sinai. Okay. K'moshe Bier HaTomer Devorah Perek Aleph. He's bringing the Tomer Devorah, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Merachem Al Bnei Adam She'enam Hagunim. Hashem has rachamim on people that are not proper, that are not properly behaving. Me'otzer shel matanat hinam. Why does Hashem have this? Where does this rachamim come from? It comes from the Ramak says from the treasure house of matanat hinam. What is matanat hinam? Free gift. How did Moshe Rabbeinu pray? Va'et hanan. What does va'et hanan mean? Free gift. Isn't that amazing? What is Va'et Hanan? Free gift. Even though if anybody should have been able to tell Hashem, by the way, I want to use my merit, no. Va'et Hanan is Matanat Hinam. Why? Because the goal here is to bring Rachamim unlimited. That's Matanat Hinam. Because nobody deserves that.
Even if you think you do, there's something going to be wrong anyway.
100%. Okay, very good. Nobody deserves that. So even Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest Jew that ever lived, when he's asking to bring the shlemut, when he's asking to bring the perfected world, the olam haba, he asks for it as a matanat hinam.
I feel better because a lot of times in my prayers, I'll the treasury of free gifts, and I'll say to myself sometimes, "You sure?" Yeah, absolutely, because who knows? But I never knew that Moshe himself.
But look at
good footsteps.
Look at the expertise of Moshe Rabbeinu in Tefillah. Look at there's no word that is for naught. The name Hashi used, Va'et Hanan, right? This is all related to what he was asking for. Now let's go to another interesting place, okay? God comes to Abraham in the Brit Ben Ebetarim, which is the first prophecy, even though it's not in the beginning of Lech Lecha. According to our understanding, the first prophecy Abraham receives is Brit Ben Ebetarim. What does Hashem promise him in Brit Ben Ebetarim?
Giant nation.
And you're going to have the land of Israel from the river to the sea, from the Euphrates all the way to the Mediterranean, right? What does Abraham say?
How do I know?
Bama eda ki irashena.
And he may have been punished for that, right?
Again, depending on how you look at it. What is he asking? Bama eda. Not how do I know? It just said that he's a man of emunah. It just said by how could that be? In what merit are we going to inherit the land of Israel? Because remember, the receiving of the land of Israel comes before the world of the Shlemut, which means it's still in the section of merit.
Also, during that whole incident, these violent birds attacked and stuff, and there has to be
those are the four. Those who represent the four nations, the four nations that were going to give the Jewish people difficulty: Egypt, Persia, Greece, and Rome, right? Which Daniel speaks about. Yes, okay. But this is during
dark. Birds came. Yeah, it was really kind of a freaky incident.
So what is Abraham? Abraham is trying to understand. He recognizes that that they have to inherit the land of Israel first, and then what's going to happen? It's the shlemut comes, the perfection comes, right? So if they're going to inherit the land of Israel first, then bama eda ki irashena. How do I know? In what merit? Not how do I know. In what merit are my descendants going to inherit the land of Israel? And then Hashem answers him. That's the Brit Ben Ebetarim. But what name does Avraham Avinu use? The merit is going to be Yadoah Tedah. Your children will be slaves in a land that's not theirs. That's the merit. Okay, there's the merit.
400 years.
For 400 years, exactly 400 years. We only did 210. We still owe 190. That's what we're paying off right now. Okay, but there was another possibility. What's the other possibility? Matanat chinam. Free gift. When are you going to get? How are you going to get a free gift? In this world, there are no free gifts. In this world, no, I mean, even in this world, this is the world of schar va'onesh. There's no free gift. The world to come, that's where there can be free gift. That's the world of reward, right? Okay. So, what name does Avraham Avinu use? Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, and Yud Ke Vav Ke written as Elohim. The same name that Moshe Rabbeinu uses later on. So you see, Avraham perhaps was asking, if this is a free gift, thank you very much. That means a shleimut is coming now. But if it's not going to be free gift and we have to earn it, in what merit are we going to earn it? That's the depth of Avraham's prayer. Okay? All right, let's continue on. So he says over here, so when a person needs unlimited mercy, that comes from matanat chinam, that comes from a free gift. What allows a Jewish person to have a free gift? Merit of the fathers. And that's why if you look at the Exodus from Egypt, there are two reasons the Talmud teaches why the Jewish people left Egypt. One was Zechut Avot, merit of the fathers, which means it was Matanat Chinam, a free gift, because you did nothing. Your fathers did everything. I promised your father all this stuff. I have to fulfill my promises, but you don't deserve it. That's one idea. What's the other idea the Talmud brings of why we left Egypt? Bizchut Nashim Tzadkaniot. In the merit of righteous women. Wow. Now, one is Matanat Chinam. The Avot is Matanat Chinam. It's free gift. Bizchut Nashim Tzadkaniot, that's not free gift. That's the women who were in the time of Egypt. The ladies, what they did in order to continue to perpetuate the Jewish nation. Yes? That's, we see that balance. Matanat Chinam, that's Avot. If it's going to be, what's that? Correct. If it's going to be based on work, not free, then it is from Nashim Tzadkaniot. Okay, let's continue on. So therefore, what does it mean? Matanat Chinam. You don't deserve it. But what happened? Because I made promises to your fathers, I'm going to fulfill those promises. You don't deserve it, but in the merit of your fathers, that's why you're going to get the land of Israel. Beautiful. And now he's going to bring the rabbi who wrote this this book here, not the Shaare. This is on the bottom, of course. He's going to bring Rav Dessler in Michtav Me'Eliyahu. Wonderful, wonderful book. Okay, what does it say in Rav Dessler's book Michtav Me'Eliyahu? V'zeloshono zuchut avot milshon zuchut. Oh no, milshon zachut. What is zechut avot? Merit of the fathers. In the language of zachut, what does zachut mean? There's zechut in Hebrew, which means merit. And then in Hebrew, there's a word zachut. What is zachut? We're going to read it this week on Shabbat. Shemen zayit zach katit lamaor. What is shemen zayit zach? Pure. The word zach means pure. So there's zechut, which is merit. And then in Hebrew, the word zachut is pure. Exactly. One second, let's continue on. So now the Rav Dessler is explaining this concept of zechut avot. What is zechut avot, right? He says zechut avot milshon, not zechut avot, zachut avot. What is zachut avot? The perfection, the purity of the fathers. Okay, purity of the fathers, the purity of their avodah. What made the avodah of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov pure? Not Moshe, not Aharon. What made the avodah of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov pure? What is this idea of pureness of avodah, of service to God purely? without expectation of reward. Many things were promised to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and they didn't get it.
Didn't get the land.
He had to buy a parcel of land to bury his wife. God promised him all the land from the river to the sea, and he doesn't even have land to bury his wife. And what words came out of their mouth in complaining? None. Yaakov at the end complained about how difficult his life was, but he didn't complain, never complained that Hashem didn't give him all the things that he deserved. Okay, so what we see now, we're going to begin a bunch of parashot. What's the problem? They're complaining.
This summer, this is it. Summer of complaints.
Exactly, summer of complaints.
That's what's opening up now.
So Zachut Kochot Zachim Shiresh Im Yisrael Me Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. So because the forefathers worshipped Hashem, did their avodat Hashem with purity, Zachut, which means without expectation of reward, them receiving reward. Therefore, that is the Zachut. The Zachut of the Avot is what? It's the Zachut of their avodah. You follow what he's saying, Rav Dessler? In Hebrew, it's much nicer than it is in English, okay? Because in English, it's two different words. In Hebrew, it's the same letters. What is the zechut avot? What is the merit of the fathers? What does that mean? It's the zachut of their avodah.
They got reward, but it wasn't the big payoff.
They didn't
the land. What did they get?
They had to buy it. They didn't get it for free.
Abraham was protected when he was traveling in Egypt, and they took Sarah, and Hashem was there watching and making sure that
Sarah took care of herself.
Okay, and then when you go through all the different incidents with Isaac, I mean, Hashem was always there, kind of taking care of them, but it was not like the big payoff. They didn't get like.
So that's the concept. What is zechut avot? Is the zachut, the purity of their zachut, the purity of their service. We could learn that from Nashim Tzadkaniyot. Zachut, which means the purity of their worship. Yes. What is the purity? Not on condition to receive reward. That's a given, not complaining. When does a person complain? When you think you have something coming to you and it doesn't come. That's when you complain, right? That's all the complaints. So the avot, they had much coming to them, but they knew they were not going to realize that reward in their lives. Their reward was in the bank for the future. Yes? Okay? This is what Rav Dessel says. It's just beautiful using of the words. And as long as the rope, the chain is not removed from the fathers, what does that mean? We have Zechut Avot. What is the first thing they did into the poem of Kol Od Balevav? They removed Lashuv Le'eretz Avotenu, and they put down what? Liot Am Chovshi Be'artzenu. You want to know why we have troubles? We have troubles because we did that. What did he just say, Rav Dessler? Rav Dessler just said that it's the zechut of the avot that allows us to have the merit, right, to be able to receive the land. In the original poem of Hatikvah, written in the 1880s, right, the words were Lashuv le'eretz avotenu, Eretz Sion Yerushalayim, to return to the land of our fathers. That was the original stanza. What did the non-religious Zionists do? They changed it. Liot am chovshi be'artzenu, to be a free nation in our land.
Okay, so get rid of the forefathers. You don't need to have them.
What did they do? They removed the connection with the forefathers. Removing what? Yeah, I have in the Ktav Yad of Naftali Heretz Imber, the original version of the Hatikvah. I'll send it to you. I sent it to someone else who challenged me, didn't believe I knew what I was talking about, so I had to show him. Now, I know you're not, but that's okay. I have no problem. Hopefully, everything I have is based on factual information. I don't want to give fake news, okay? But what do we see from here? Why their troubles? If it's zechut avot, the zachut of their avodah, then there's no troubles. That's the mistake. The mistake was they thought they can do it without the zechut avot. No. And also, what does it mean liot am chofshi be'artzenu? What does it mean chofshi? We're going to read in this week's parasha now. I'm going to give a drasha. This is maybe what I'm going to talk about on Shabbat. What did they ask? What did they say? We remember the fish that we ate for free. Zacharnu et hadaga ashel nochal hinam. So now Rashi says, wait a minute. Well, wait a minute. Rashi says they didn't give them straw to make bricks for the buildings for the Egyptians. You mean to tell me they're going to give them fish for free? Nonsense. What does it mean we remember the fish that we ate for free? Not free of payment, free from brachot, free from the laws of the Torah, and fish of all the things to pick on. Fish is the worst. Why is fish the worst? It doesn't require shechita. I mean, you can kill the fish anyway, right? And you're allowed to eat it. Unlike a behemah, there's all the laws of shechita, all these things. No, we remember the fish that we ate for free. Forget about the behemah that we ate, that we didn't have to worry about shechita and things like that and trefot. This was the complaint.
Eat fish with no bracha.
That's it. That's what they were complaining about. We remember the fish we ate without obligation to God. That's really what they're saying. What did the Tzionim say? We're going to take this land without obligation to God. Liot am chofshi. What does it mean, am chofshi? Free. Free of what? Free of Gentile influence, which was nonsense, because all the laws of the state of Israel are from Turkish and British law. So it's not free of Gentile influence. Certainly not cultural influence. It's not, because people who are not religious or people who are not observant in Israel, they're influenced by the culture of the Gentiles. Yes? What do they want freedom from? Freedom from the Torah. And there is no acquisition of the land of Israel without the Torah. That's the mistake.
So it's funny because it was the non-religious who insisted that it had to be the land of Israel and not Uganda. But it's the same people who said, "Look, let's get rid of the forefathers."
Well, they would have been satisfied with Uganda. Herzl.
I heard it was a non-religious that the religious people, they were willing to do a deal for Uganda, but the non-religious.
Okay.
No way it has to be the land.
Let's look that.
true or not?
I don't know. Let's look that up. Maybe that's true. I don't know.
The religious
Because I've
were a
heard
real
that.
minority.
But the problem is
I've heard this many times.
the problem is that the religious are not out of the woods because they didn't participate with the building of the land. Since they didn't participate with the building of land, they didn't get to participate with what happens when the land was established. Right? We didn't participate in the building of the land. That was all the non-religious people went to dry the swamps to get the mosquitoes and die of malaria. Right? So because we didn't participate, the religious people didn't participate in the building of the land, right? And if you think that was exactly what happened in the second temple.
I learned that from Rabbi Goldberg.
In the second temple, who went up?
8,000 people only.
42,000. Who went up though?
And the Levites.
Most of them, the Levites didn't go, which means the teachers of the Jewish people, the ones who were responsible for teaching Torah, stayed in Bavel.
Why? Because they had land there.
Because they had land for the first time.
For the first time, the Levites had an occupation.
And of course, they needed an occupation. Why do they need an occupation? Because the Jewish people didn't own land, so there was no Trumot and Ma'asrot. They're outside the land of Israel.
My Levite brothers are now Iraqis.
So the Levites, Baruch Hashem, didn't participate in Chet HaEgel, thank God. That's that's wonderful. But the Levites didn't come back.
Where was Babylon exactly? In Iraq?
Iraq. Babylon is Iraq. So Ezra Sofer punished the Levim. What did he do? When they came to build the land, they would do Tromot and Ma'asrot. All the Ma'asrot that was supposed to go to Leviim went to the Kohanim. Because they weren't there anyway. But who came? Poor people came. The schleppers came. The people who were married to goyot came. Kohanim. Good. So we see this is a parallel, and we didn't learn the lesson. When we went to go up to the land of Israel and build the second Bet HaMikdash, it didn't have the glory of the first Bet HaMikdash. Why not? Because there wasn't enough participation from, and that's all our fault that we're still here. We still have to answer that question. Why are we still here, right? As Jews, I mean, you can say the captain's last one to leave the ship, but that only works for so far, right? Why are we still here? We're not in the right place. We're supposed to be there, right? Anyway, so that's our part. So we can talk about what their part is, liot am chofshi be'artzenu, and what's our part, that we don't participate enough in what's going on there by being there, right? So just like in Bavel, people stayed behind, right? Though that was also the same problem with the building, and that's why the second temple was never as grand. The period wasn't as grand as the first temple, right? And there was no Yovel, and there was no Shmi from the Torah. Why? Because the majority of people outside the land of Israel, even in the time of the second temple. So Yovel we have not had since the destruction of the first temple. Shemitah from the Torah we have not had since the destruction of the first temple. Be'ezrat Hashem, in the near future, maybe there'll be more Jews living in the land of Israel than anywhere else, or the majority of the Jewish people living in the land of Israel, and then those would become again. Let's finish this up and then we'll stop, okay? So we see it's very important not to separate the chevel, not to break the string between the avot. And that's why in the tefillah, what do? Elokeinu v'elokei avoteinu, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Why do we mention Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Why do we mention Moshe? Why don't we mention David? Why don't we mention Aaron? I mean, so many. Why don't we mention Miriam? Why are we only mentioning Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Because their avodah was zach. That's it. So it's important for us to connect ourselves to the avot, because that gives us zuchut avot. That's why the first bracha in the Shemona Esrei is called avot. What avot? Zuchut avot. Who are you to talk before God? Well, I'm nothing. I don't deserve anything. But you know what? I'm still connected. The strand is connected to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And a convert, when they come join the Jewish nation, what's their name? Ben Avraham Avinu. Ben Bat Sarah Imenu, or Bat Havad. It depends. Why we do Ben Avraham Avinu? Because we want that convert to be able to benefit from Zechut Avot. So by connecting their name, Ben Avraham Avinu, what is that saying? It's connecting this new Jew, this Jew who's who's receiving a Jewish soul, with the Zechut Avot. That's what's discussed here. Okay, I just added to a little bit, but we see the idea. As long as the strand, the rope, is not disconnected between us and our fathers, then there is tikva. Now you understand. The guy who wrote the Hatikvah was no dummy. What's the tikvah? In order to have the tikvah, it has to be connected to avot. Lashuv le'eretz avotenu. That's the tikvah. When they changed it, liot am chofshi be'artzenu, what did they do? The name is not Hatikvah. They're forgetting. The tikvah is not acquiring the land of Israel. That's not the hope. The hope is connecting to the forefathers, so we have the merit to connect to the land of Israel. And more. Why are the Yisurim? Because Avraham understood that the land of Israel is only acquired through suffering. Yes? Suffering. Which means if we do not connect to the suffering of our forefathers, we have to suffer. Okay, let's continue. Wow. As long as they're connected to their fathers, then they have the ability to fix everything that was broken, everything that was messed up. When they separate themselves from their fathers, very perfect for Father's Day. V'novdu me'im Yisrael, and they're lost for Am Yisrael, and they disconnect themselves from the nation of Israel, which is exactly what the Zionists did. Lashuv le'eretz avotenu, change it to liyotam chofshi be'artzenu. Hakochot ve'amidot hatovot az tamaz zechut avot. Then there is no zechut avot. And if there's no zechut avot, what does that mean? You have to work. You have to make it on your own zechut. You have to suffer.
We will never have the same.
So you want to change the suffering right now? They have to change the Hatikvah prayer, the national anthem of the state of Israel. I'll say this out. I know I'm not an Israeli. Change the national anthem to what it was before. What it was before was the national anthem. Lashuv le'eretz avotenu. And maybe through that alone, based on what Rav Dessler is saying, in Michtav me'Eliyahu, even though he's not saying about what we're talking about, the suffering would be decreased. Rav Dessler. Dessler, Dessler. Omnam al-yedei midat harachamim, but by way Dessler, Dessler. Okay. Dessler, Dessler. No problem. Let's continue on. Omnam al-yedei midat harachamim, by the way of the midah of the rachamim, mercy, yachol amshich l'oreh od zechuyot mikoach ha'avot. By the midah of the rachamim, we can also draw zechut avot. Mashikaru batenu brit avot. So there's zechut avot, and then there's brit avot, the covenant of the fathers. She'inyana afal pi she'en adam ra'ui litkayim mitzad atzmo. That even though the person themselves is not worthy to receive that mercy, yesh lo kiyum mitzad sharshut hadorot. He has merit. Why? He can get the rachamim based on the forefathers. That's not called zechut avot. That is called brit avot. Shiamdu mimenu banim lekabelat havtachat Hashem. That what is the brit avot? That they're going to have children that are going to fulfill the promises of God. Yes, Hashem made promises to Abraham Avinu. What was the promise? Lezaracha eten et haaretz hazot. I will give this to your seed, to your children. Right? So if we want to receive rachamim from the forefathers, we have to be connected to them, right? And we also, that's how we receive the rachamim. It's through the brit. It's through the promise that Hashem made to the avot. Okay? So it's two separate things. One is zechut avot, which is the purity of their service. And one is the fact that Hashem promised it to their children. In order to receive that, a person has to be connected. There are those generations, or there are those individuals that according to the mishpat, according to the judgment, which is this world is mishpat, yes? They're not worthy to continue on. Based on the mishpat, they're not worthy to have to continue on. Why do they continue? They're not existing in their own merit. They're existing, they're living, they're continuing on in the merit of their fathers. And their children. They are like a ring in the chain of the generations. Okay? Ki biladehem en chibur ben avotehem l'dorot yavo. Because without those children and grandchildren, there is no connection with the original generations. And this has to do with the swear and the covenant that God made that he would continue the zera of the forefathers. When God says your children will inherit this land, he's guaranteeing that Abraham's children will survive as worshiping Hashem. Why are the Jewish people still here? Because of that promise. Very simple. So people say we don't have enough merit. Okay, even if we don't have merit, even if our deeds do not allow us, if it was just based on you and me, we would have no kiyum. No, but because God made a promise to the fathers, therefore, that's why I receive rachamim. I receive the rachamim based on the promise to the fathers. Ad ge'ula shlema, until the ultimate redemption. Below yafsik yivechle am Yisrael, and the Jewish people will never be completely destroyed. There are we can serve a lot of completely. We can have difficulties in different places and stuff like that, like Poland and like Ukraine, and Germany, in every other country in the world. Yes, we can have difficulties. Yes, where unfortunately they damage us. Yes, but they will never win. We see that from Yaakov.
He's limping away from Esau's angel, but he's still standing.
That is correct. That's because of the promise to the fathers, right? So there's zuchut avot, which is based on the zachut of their avodah, the purity of their service, which means l'shem shamayim and not for any reward. And then there is brit avot, which is the covenant that Hashem made with the avot that they're going to have children. Okay, we'll stop here. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. That's great.
Have you